Well, a happier and more productive partnership than Sangster and Dickinson has been Redgrave and Holmes. Their sport is rowing. Stephen Redgrave and Andy Holmes have struck gold at Olympic, world and Commonwealth level as a partnership. Redgrave has individual success in the single sculls. Now, with many Sports Personality of the Year coupons still to be filled in, it's appropriate perhaps to give you more information on Britain's outstanding rowers who have provided us with success after some very lean years in the sport. Jerry Sinstadt reports.
The first post-war Olympics were makeshift, happy-go-lucky games. They rowed at Henley between the twisting, narrow banks of the Thames. Britain's John Wilson and Bill Lorry, who hadn't rowed for 10 years, came back from the war to win the coxless pairs. And we had Richard Burnell and Bertram Bushnell in the final of the double sculls.
Burnell and Bushnell finished strongly, 2 lengths and 4 seconds ahead of the Dane.
Despite success in 1948, British rowing was slow to shake off the spirit of the 20s. Henley, as much social as sporting, remained the focal point. 36 years passed with no glint of Olympic gold until one misty morning in California.
They've now got 20 metres to go, and Britain are going to win the gold. Britain first, the United States second. They cross the line now, and there is gold for Great Britain.
If anyone had said to me before that, when you sort of stood on the Olympic stadium, you'll be very emotional, I wouldn't have believed them at all. But I think it's every sportsman's dream to be Olympic champion. And I think there's very few people that believe that they can do it. And when you actually stand there and you've done it, it all sort of floods through.
In the coxed four, who became Olympic champions 2 years ago, Stephen Redgrave was stroke, Andy Holmes was in the number 3 seat.
Go.
But how did they become world and Commonwealth champions as a pair?
It really was by accident. At the beginning of this season, I was thinking about giving up, and Andy had given up the year before, and he wanted to make a comeback, and it seemed the obvious thing to do was to get back into a pair together.
Did it work well from the start?
It did, yeah. Yeah, because in '84, the boat came together very well, and obviously rowing in the stern of the boat together, we did a lot of work in the fore, and the pair was just like chopping the boat in half, really. It was just the front half of the fore.
We do get on very well together. I know pairs that argue all the time and still go quite fast. But we do get on very well together, and the pair does go very, very fast.
They're a partnership who have all the makings of a great combination. Their strong points really are that they get on very well in the boat together, and they seem to bring the best out of one another in a race circumstance. On top of that, they have the 3 vital elements for good rowing, which is technically they're very proficient, secondly they're very strong, and thirdly their psychology is very good when they're racing.
This year, Holmes and Redgrave won coxed and coxless pairs events at major international regattas. Their ultimate target was gold in the World Championship coxed pairs. But first came the Commonwealth Games. They were winners again in the 4, and as a pair, they were unbeatable. Reward for rigorous preparation.
Mainly, I'd say 90% of the work is done on the water. It's just plodding up and down during the winter months when ice is forming in the back of your hair, and you come back and your sweatshirt is frozen to you and things like this.
You can never reach perfection, but obviously the nearer you can get to it in your technique, the faster you'll go. So most of it is just fitness, but there's always something you can work on. There's always a bit of technique you can think about just to get that little bit of extra speed.
It's at Marlow, where Redgrave began rowing as a schoolboy, that he and Holmes do their fine-tuning under coach Mike Sprackler.
In a pair, it's a difficult boat to balance, and so most technical faults are highlighted by the way the boat is balanced. One man rowing on one side, the other man rowing on the other side. You have to get even pressure, and if the pressure becomes uneven, like a fault, it'll show up in the way the boat travels through the water.
But when the ultimate test comes, when the World Championship is at stake, the coach is impotent.
Normally, the crew will row to pattern, and you know what to expect. Sometimes it doesn't happen quite when you expect it, and then it does become a little agonising. This happened, of course, this year in Nottingham. I was not anxious until the last 250.
And Britain are coming. The East Germans responding, but it doesn't look as though they can hold the surge from Holmes and Redgrave, and the cheers begin to mount from the grandstand. This is the victory that Britain was expecting. This is the race that the crowds have come to see, and this is a remarkable partnership.
I always thought I was world champion material, in actual fact, and I suppose Steve did as well. And I assumed that our pair, together, we would be in the class that we are.
In rowing events, I've done it all really. I've won the Olympics, I've won the Commonwealth Games, I've won the World Championships. Virtually from this stage on, it's just repeating those targets again, which takes a different sort of motivation.
When you compete, who are you competing for? Are you competing for yourself, or your coach, or your country, or what's in your mind then?
I think it's got to be for yourself, really, because the outside motivation is negligible, really. For the hours that you're doing, I mean, there's very little. There's no money reward in it. There's very little fame. I mean, nobody knows who we are. So I think it's got to be just your personal satisfaction. Just the personal satisfaction of knowing that you can move a shell faster than anybody else in the world.
And self-motivation counts for much when the bills come in. Rowers today don't all come from the traditional wealthy background of pre-war years, and rowers have no private trust funds of prize money as do the Olympic champions on the track.
People like that are set up already in life, the money they've made from their sports. I'd like to see a few more financial gains out of it. Now I do it just solely full-time, but when we started the sport, we started because we enjoyed doing that sport. We never started because of the money side. That's
a shame, actually, when the inequality, because the athletes, or some of the other sports as well, once you start getting money in, it makes it a lot easier because you can support your sport, and it makes it, you can do what you enjoy, and you can survive with it as well. You know, it can actually support itself, whereas rowing doesn't support itself. Therefore, really, it's a net drain.
In the year before Steve Redgrave became Olympic champion, he was given a grant of £300. Now, for a triple champion, the support is a bit more generous, and there's some sponsorship too. But the income still spreads pretty thinly over the full-time dedication of the most versatile all-rounder in the history of British rowing. Redgrave's 3 Commonwealth titles came from sculling in the singles, as well as rowing in the pair and the 4. And the BBC Superstars, in which he finished 3rd, was a natural temptation for a man of his physique and power. Nor does he let go of the belief that one day he can stand alone as champion of the world in single sculls. But for now, one man's ambition comes second to the continuing success of the pair. Through dark winter days,